Hi guys, it's Emily with Cozy Clicks, and you're watching this because you want to know how to create a blurry background in your photos. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Okay. Now, there's a few things you can do to set yourself up for blurry backgrounds in your photos before you even get into Photoshop. And if you click on the link below, that takes you to the blog post that goes over 4 great tips that you can do before you get into Photoshop so you can set yourself up for having a blurry background. Now, this technique that I'm going to show you here works best if the background is already slightly blurry to begin with. Now in this particular photo, I shot it at a aperture of 3.2 with a 135 millimeter lens. So that created some blur already, but I wanted to give it more of a creative feel. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I go up to Layer, Duplicate Layer, hit OK. I'm going to go up to Filter. I'm going to choose Blur and then Gaussian Blur. Right now I have my radius set at 95.6 pixels. This is where you can kind of choose the blurriness that you want. Now notice it goes through the whole photo, but we're just paying attention to what the background of that would look like. I could bring it all the way up and get a really blurry photo, or bring it down and just get a slight blur. For this particular photo, I'm going to go up quite a bit because I know that later I can always bring the opacity down if I want, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So here I'm picking 81.2, and I'm going to click OK. Now that blurred the entire photo, and we don't want that. We want just the background. So I'm going to create a layer mask down here at the bottom. And I'm going to come over now to my left-hand side, and I'm going to choose this little guy right here, this gradient button, the gradient tool. Okay. I want to make sure that black is set in the foreground, and I want to make sure that this first box is checked here at the top. That's the box that's going to create a linear gradient that goes up and down. Okay. Now when I go down to my bottom, so I have this gradient tool selected, and I'm just going to left click here and drag it up until about the middle of my subject's face, because I want to erase the blur everywhere except the background. Now you can play around with this a little bit. You can see if you go up a little bit farther, it takes it off a little bit more. If you go down like this, it takes it off a little less. So you can kind of play around with it and see. What we need to do now is get the blur off of our subject. And because it already was a blurry background to begin with, this technique makes it very easy to brush off our subject. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my brush, make sure it's black, and I'm going to shrink my brush just a little bit, and I'm just going to brush that blur off the foreground and off the subject. Okay, so I want to make sure it's all off of the foreground so it looks more natural. These weeds are kind of right by that crate, so I don't want those weeds to be blurred because they're on the same plane. I don't have to be quite as careful erasing the blur off of my subject because, like I said, the background was already blurry to begin with, so it's not really gonna peek through. It's just giving us a little bit more of a creative blur in the background. Okay, so I'm going to erase it off of him and off of his hands. And there you go, that's it. Okay, now you can see if I take that extra blur off, still blurry before, but you can tell when we add it in, using that gradient tool, it gives it just that little more of a creative edge. I hope you learned a little bit something here, and if you want to know more tips on how to achieve a blurry background in your photo, just click on the link below and that will take you to the blog article with 4 great tips for setting yourself up for blurry backgrounds. Thanks so much, guys, and if you like this, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be adding more video Photoshop tutorials in the very near future. Thanks again.